At a bridal shower, my cousin said, "She won't last a year in that marriage. She's too selfish." My husband's family nodded quietly. I just folded napkins. 5 years later, when she showed up crying to my doorstep, she froze when she saw who was standing behind me and it was a warm June afternoon in Asheville, North Carolina, when the comment that changed everything was thrown like a grenade into the middle of my bridal shower. The air was thick with the smell of roses and cake, and the hum of casual conversations filled the room. I was seated at the table, folding pastel blue napkins into little triangles, smiling politely, trying to soak it all in. Then I heard her voice. "She won't last a year in that marriage. She's too selfish." Lisa. My cousin Lisa. Her voice was sharp, laced with sarcasm, cutting through the air like a blade. She said it so casually, like it was a fact everyone should accept. I felt the air leave my lungs. My hands paused mid-fold. The room fell so still, it was as if someone had turned down the volume. My future mother-in-law, Nancy, looked away, eyes darting toward the window. My father-in-law shifted uncomfortably in his chair. A couple of Mark's aunts exchanged a knowing glance, nodding quietly, like they agreed with her but didn't want to say it out loud. I looked down at my hands and kept folding napkins. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I didn't say a word. I didn't even look up. I just focused on the napkins, as if they were the most important thing in the world at that moment. I remember thinking, this is how they see me. Selfish. Unfit to be a wife. A failure before I even begin. Lisa always had a way of making me feel small. We'd grown up together, and from as far back as I could remember, she was the one who had it all together. Lisa, the girl with the perfect hair, the straight-A report cards, the prom queen crown. And me? I was the quiet one. The one who kept her head down. The one who was nice, but never quite enough. I didn't say a word that day. I married Mark 2 months later, but the comment stuck to me like glue. Too selfish to make it a year. It became a voice in the back of my head. Every argument with Mark, every struggle we had, every time I needed something for myself, I'd hear Lisa's voice sneering, "Told you so." That first year was hell. Mark and I fought, a lot. Not over anything huge at first. Dishes left in the sink. Bills that piled up. My long hours at work, his nights out with friends. But every time we argued, I could feel their eyes on me, the family's quiet judgment. My own family had their opinions too, but Lisa's words. Those were the ones that burned the deepest. I could almost hear her laughing when we fought. It made me grit my teeth and push harder. I cooked dinners I didn't want to cook. I stayed up late cleaning. I went out of my way to remember birthdays, to buy thoughtful gifts, to be the perfect wife. I bit my tongue more times than I could count, just to keep the peace. Every time I felt like giving up, I'd think, no. I'm not going to prove her right. I'm going to make this work. Years passed, and slowly, things got better. Mark and I grew into each other. We learned how to fight without breaking each other. We laughed more, forgave faster. I built a life, our life, with him, brick by brick. I worked hard at my job, got promoted twice, and even though it wasn't always easy, I started to feel proud of who I was. Lisa barely showed her face at family events after that first year. When she did, she kept her distance. Her smiles were tight, her hugs brief. I knew she was watching, waiting for me to crumble. But I didn't. I held it together. Until 5 years later, on a cold February night, when there was a knock at my door. It was pouring rain, the kind of relentless, bone-chilling rain that made you want to stay inside and hide under a blanket. Mark and I had just finished dinner, the house smelled like leftover pasta, and I was loading the dishwasher when I heard it, 3 sharp knocks at the front door. I wiped my hands on a towel, walked to the door, and opened it. There she was. Lisa. Soaking wet, mascara streaking down her cheeks, her hair plastered to her face. Her eyes were swollen, red, and hollow, like she hadn't slept in days. She was shaking, arms crossed tightly over her chest, her breath visible in the cold air. Can I come in?" she asked, her voice breaking. I didn't say a word. My mind raced, a tornado of questions swirling around. Why was she here? What happened? What did she want from me? I stepped aside, letting her in. She walked in slowly, shivering, and as I closed the door behind her, I heard Mark's voice. "Who is it?" he called from the kitchen, his voice calm, unsuspecting. I turned, just as Mark walked into the hallway. The second his eyes landed on Lisa, his entire face changed. His jaw tightened, his shoulders stiffened. Lisa's face froze. Her eyes went wide, her mouth hung open like she was seeing a ghost. "Mark?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. Mark's hands clenched into fists at his sides. His eyes were dark, cold, hard. And in that moment, I knew. I didn't know the whole story yet, but I knew something had happened between them. Something big. Lisa's face crumpled, like a building collapsing. Her lips trembled. Her eyes filled with tears, and she took a step back, like she'd just been punched in the gut. I didn't know you were here," she stammered, her voice barely audible. Mark didn't say a word. He just stared at her, his face like stone. The silence between them was suffocating. Lisa stood there, dripping on my hardwood floor, while Mark's eyes burned into her like a laser. The air in the room felt like it had been sucked out, leaving nothing but tension. I stood there too, silent, frozen, my heart pounding so loud in my ears I could barely think. I wanted to scream at them. What the hell is going on? But I stayed quiet. I watched. Lisa's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold her purse. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps, like she was struggling to hold back a sob. "Mark, she started, her voice breaking. Mark didn't let her finish. He turned and walked back into the kitchen, leaving her standing there, broken, exposed. I looked at Lisa, waiting. But she couldn't even look at me. She just stood there, staring at the floor, tears dripping onto the wood. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about her marriage falling apart. This was about Mark. About something I wasn't supposed to know. I felt my stomach drop. I took a deep breath and crossed my arms, my voice low and steady. "You better start talking," I said. Lisa's eyes snapped up to mine, wide with panic. Lisa opened her mouth like she wanted to speak, but no words came out. She looked at me, then at the kitchen where Mark had disappeared, then back at me again. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. "Please," she whispered. I just need a place to stay tonight." I folded my arms tighter, feeling the anger bubbling up, hot and sharp in my chest. "Start talking, Lisa," I said again, my voice low, steady, dead serious. "What's going on?" She looked like a cornered animal, wide-eyed and trapped. She glanced toward the kitchen again, as if Mark might reappear at any second, then back at me, her lips quivering. "I didn't know he'd be here," she muttered under her breath. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. My mouth went dry. "What the hell does that mean?" I asked, my voice rising now, the control slipping. "What happened between you two?" Lisa squeezed her eyes shut, like she was trying to block it all out. She took a deep, shaky breath and whispered, "It was years ago." "Years ago?" My head spun. What the hell was she talking about? "Before you got married," she whispered, barely audible. "Just once." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I could feel the air leave my lungs, my knees almost buckling. Once. Before we got married. My mind raced, my vision tunneling. I took a step back, shaking my head in disbelief. My stomach churned. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to slap her across the face, but I couldn't move. I was frozen. Mark's voice suddenly cut through the air from the kitchen, cold and sharp. Lisa, stop. She flinched like she'd been slapped, her eyes darting toward the sound. I could hear Mark's footsteps approaching, slow and heavy, each one like a drumbeat in my chest. He appeared in the doorway, his face hard, unreadable. His eyes locked on Lisa's, and for a second they stared at each other in silence, like there was a whole conversation happening that I couldn't hear. Tell her the truth, I snapped at him, my voice shaking. Tell me what the hell is going on. Mark's jaw tensed. His hands were clenched at his sides. He glanced at me, then back at Lisa. His face was tight, strained, like he was holding back a storm. It was a mistake, he said finally, his voice low, almost a growl. It was years ago. It was a mistake, and it meant nothing. Lisa let out a choked sob, covering her mouth with her hand. I stared at both of them, my vision blurring with tears. My hands were shaking, but I clenched them into fists, forcing myself to stay standing. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, hoarse from the emotion clawing at my throat. Neither of them answered. I didn't sleep that night. Lisa stayed in the guest room, and I could hear her sobbing softly through the walls. Mark slept on the couch, though I doubted he got much sleep either. I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing in circles. I felt like a fool. Like I'd been living in some twisted play, the only one who didn't know the script. All those years, all those family gatherings where Lisa looked at me like she knew something I didn't. The smug smiles, the passive-aggressive comments. It wasn't just jealousy, it was guilt. She'd been holding on to this secret, and so had Mark. In the morning, I barely looked at either of them. I made coffee in silence, my hands trembling as I poured it. Lisa sat at the kitchen table, her face blotchy, eyes red-rimmed, staring down at her hands. Mark leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his face tight and pale. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me, but I didn't speak. I couldn't. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. I didn't come here to tell you this, she said quietly. I came because I need help. My husband, he's dangerous. I scoffed, the sound bitter and cold. Dangerous? How convenient. I'm serious, she whispered. I think he's been tracking me. My phone. My car. I've been trying to leave for months. He threatened me. He told me if I left, he'd ruin my life. Her voice cracked, and she buried her face in her hands. Mark shifted uncomfortably but stayed quiet. I stared at her, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to tell her to get the hell out, to take her lies and drama and leave me the hell alone. But another part of me, the part that had been raised to be a good person, a decent person, hesitated. What if she was telling the truth? What if she really was in danger? I clenched my jaw, staring at her. Fine, I said finally, my voice low. You can stay. For now. But don't think this conversation is over. Lisa nodded, sniffling, her hands shaking. And then, as if the universe wasn't done kicking me while I was down, my phone buzzed on the counter. A message from an unknown number. You're making a big mistake. I froze. Lisa's eyes widened when she saw the screen. She swallowed hard, her face going pale. Who the hell is that? I asked, my voice sharp. Lisa didn't answer. She just looked down at her lap, her hands twisting nervously. Mark stared at the phone, his face unreadable. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't fully understood until now. This wasn't just about an affair. This wasn't just about betrayal. There was something bigger going on. Something darker. And I was right in the middle of it. I stood there holding my phone, reading that message over and over, my heart racing so loud I could barely think. You're making a big mistake. It felt like a threat. And it wasn't just directed at Lisa, it was at me. I looked at her, sitting there in my kitchen, her eyes wide, her face pale like she'd seen a ghost. Her hands were shaking, twisting the edge of her sleeve like she was about to fall apart. Mark stood a few feet away, arms crossed, his face unreadable, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way he kept glancing at Lisa, like there was more he wasn't saying. I slammed the phone down on the counter, the sound sharp and sudden in the quiet kitchen. "Tell me the truth, Lisa. Who is that? Who the hell is messaging me?" Lisa's lips parted like she was going to speak, but then she closed them again. Her eyes darted toward Mark, then back to me. Her voice came out in a whisper. "I don't know. I swear I don't know." Mark let out a short, bitter laugh under his breath, shaking his head. "That's bull. You know damn well who that is." Lisa's head snapped toward him. "Shut up, Mark. Just shut up." Her voice cracked, and she looked like she was about to lose it. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What the hell is going on between you two?" I snapped, my voice sharp, shaking, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Neither of them spoke. Lisa's eyes filled with tears, and Mark just looked down at the floor, silent, like a man who knew he was caught but wasn't ready to explain. The silence was unbearable, and I couldn't take it anymore. I turned on Mark, my voice low, furious. "You had an affair with her, didn't you? Is that what this is? Was it just once, or was it more? How long, Mark? How long were you lying to me?" Mark looked up, his eyes cold, tired. His voice was low, like he didn't even have the energy to fight anymore. "It was just once. I told you. It was a mistake. But I wasn't buying it anymore." My gut screamed at me. This wasn't just some one-night slip-up from years ago. This was deeper. Messier. I turned back to Lisa. "Who's threatening me?" I demanded. Lisa's hands started to tremble even harder. Her voice was barely a whisper. It's Jake." The name hung in the air like smoke. I stared at her. "Jake?" I repeated slowly, the name tasting bitter in my mouth. She nodded, her voice shaking. "My husband. Jake." I felt the ground shift under me. "What does Jake have to do with any of this?" I asked, my voice low, dangerous. Lisa's eyes filled with fresh tears, and she let out a shaky breath. "Because Jake knows," she whispered. "Knows what?" I snapped. Lisa's lips trembled. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "About me and Mark. About what we did." My stomach dropped. Mark closed his eyes, running a hand down his face like he wanted to disappear. Lisa kept going, her words tumbling out in a panicked rush. "I told him years ago. I thought it didn't matter anymore, that it was in the past. But he never let it go. He started tracking my phone, my emails. He threatened to tell you if I ever left him." I stared at her, stunned. My whole body felt like it was vibrating, my ears ringing with the sound of blood rushing. Lisa wiped her eyes and kept talking, her voice barely holding together. "When I finally packed my bags last week, he must have seen me leave. That text, it's from him. He's trying to scare me into coming back." I felt sick to my stomach. "So now you're dragging me into this mess?" I hissed, my voice sharp. Lisa looked at me, pleading, desperate. "I didn't have anywhere else to go," she whispered. Mark was pacing now, rubbing his temples. "We need to call the cops," I said, my voice firm, steady. Lisa shook her head fast, panicked. "No. You don't understand. Jake he has things on us. Videos. Messages. If the cops get involved, he'll release them." My blood ran cold. "Videos?" I whispered, the word barely a sound. Mark stopped pacing. His face went pale. Lisa nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. "He set up cameras in the house. I didn't know at first. He has everything. Everything." I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. Mark's face told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't surprised. Not completely. And that's when I realized, Mark knew about the cameras. He wasn't just guilty of a fling with Lisa. He was tangled up in something bigger. Something dark. And I had been living in the middle of it, blind. I felt the rage building in my chest, a deep, burning fury that made my whole body shake. Lisa looked at me, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I never meant for you to get dragged into this. But it was too late for apologies. I stared at both of them, my voice low, sharp as a blade. Don't you dare think this is over. Either of you. The next knock on the door almost made me jump out of my skin. We all froze. Another knock. Louder this time. Mark and Lisa both stared at the door, pale as ghosts. My phone buzzed again on the counter. Another message. Open the door. That knock on the door, it wasn't gentle. It was hard, fast, like a warning. 3 sets of eyes locked on that door. Me, Mark, and Lisa. Lisa's lips were trembling. Mark's hands were clenched into tight fists, his eyes dark and wild. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. The phone buzzed again on the counter. Open the door. Now. I wasn't thinking straight anymore. I was shaking, but I moved toward the door, every step feeling like I was walking through quicksand. Lisa's voice was a whisper, almost begging. Don't answer it. Please. Mark stepped forward, blocking me. I'll handle it. I grabbed his arm, my voice low, cold. No. I'll handle it. I took a breath, swung the door open. And there he was. Jake. He was standing there in the rain, tall, broad, dressed in a dark hoodie, water dripping down his face. But it wasn't the rain that made him look dangerous, it was his eyes. Ice cold, like a man who had nothing left to lose. He looked past me and straight into the house, his voice calm, too calm. Lisa. Come outside. Lisa's breath hitched behind me. I could feel her panic, like a pulse in the air. I squared my shoulders, blocking the door. My voice came out steady, even though I felt like my whole body was on fire. She's not going anywhere, Jake. His eyes snapped to me, and he smirked, slow and menacing. Oh, you think this is your fight now? He reached into his jacket, pulled out a phone, and held it up, thumb hovering over the screen. I've got everything, sweetheart. Every video. Every message. Every dirty little secret. One push of this button, and it's all online. You really want to make this worse for yourself? Behind me, Lisa gasped, and Mark let out a low, angry curse. I didn't blink. I stared right at Jake and said, steady, cold, go ahead. Post it. Jake's smirk faltered. His thumb hesitated over the screen. I stepped closer, my voice dropping. Post it, Jake. Show everyone. Ruin your own life while you're at it. Show the world how you illegally filmed people in your own house. You think you're untouchable? Let's see what happens when the cops get a hold of that footage. You'll go down for this. And I'll make sure you do. His face changed, just a flicker, but I saw it. A flash of doubt. Lisa's voice cracked from behind me, her panic turning into something else, anger. You sick bastard. You've been blackmailing me for years. You think you can keep me trapped forever? Jake's jaw tightened. His grip on the phone shifted. Mark, who had been silent, stepped forward, his voice low and steady. I've already called the cops. That was a lie, Mark hadn't called anyone. But it worked. Jake's face twisted, and for the first time I saw fear creep in. His hands shook. And then, before I could stop myself, I took another step forward and snatched the phone out of his hand. He lunged, but Mark tackled him hard, slamming him into the ground. They struggled, fists flying, grunts and curses filling the air. Lisa was screaming, backing into the corner, her hands over her mouth. I didn't waste a second. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, my hand steady now, and came back just in time to see Mark punch Jake square in the face. Blood sprayed, and Jake hit the floor, groaning. I held the knife low, my voice calm and flat. Get up again, Jake. See what happens. Jake didn't move. I turned to Lisa, my voice sharp. Call the cops. Now. She did. Shaky, sobbing, but she called. Jake was arrested that night: assault, stalking, illegal surveillance, extortion. The videos on his phone? We handed it all over. Every file. Every sick recording. The cops found his setup, hidden cameras, storage drives full of blackmail footage, years worth. Lisa's divorce case exploded. Jake's lawyer dropped him when the evidence came out. He lost everything. His house, his business, his reputation. Mark? Oh, I wasn't done with him. A week later, I told Mark to pack his bags. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life with a man who had betrayed me, and with my own cousin, no less. He begged. He cried. He tried to say it was a mistake, that it was all in the past. But I didn't care. I told him he had until the end of the day to get out. I filed for divorce the next morning. Lisa tried to make amends, but I told her to save her apologies. We weren't family anymore. I moved on. I kept the house, kept my job, and rebuilt my life, alone, but stronger. It took time, but I learned something. The best revenge isn't screaming or fighting or even making them suffer, though, trust me, they all did. It's standing tall, living your life, and showing them they never had the power to break you. And that's exactly what I did.